Or were you talking about any kind of FBI investigation?
I didn't use the term counterintelligence. I was speaking to him and briefing him about some salacious and unverified material. It was in the context of that he had a strong and defensive reaction about that not being true. And my reading of it was important for me to assure him we were not personally investigating him.
Yeah, you know what, though? By the way, which, of course, James Comey means he wasn't personally investigating the president. But here's what you got. This is the farce of this whole thing. They applied for the FISA warrants. With all that conversation, by the way, they already applied for multiple renewals of the FISA warrant based on what? The dossier that he just said, I just want you to know we're not investigating you based on this. But they got foreign intelligence surveillance court warrants based on this. So, I mean, you know, special counsel, independent of Bob Mueller, a special counsel needs to be established to investigate the FBI and the Department of Justice for what was going on here. I mean, because this is, I'm sorry, this is the reality. I said that, by the way, I think it was 2 months ago, because the whole Bruce Orr doing all that was, you know, inexplicable. But now when you're looking at these reports, I mean, it's an abuse of it's an important process, too. You know, I supported the FISA courts, and some of my friends don't because of the civil liberties issues. I'm very sympathetic to that. But I also think we need good counterintelligence. But we don't. This is why you give the ammunition for the other side to not want FISA applications with this kind of nonsense going on. Jordan?
Yes, I think that when you look at all of this together, you realized, as Stan said, the FBI spied on an American citizen, and it could be citizens, using information they knew to be fraudulent, that they could not corroborate. They lied to the judge by withholding where they got the information. They never disclosed to the judge that one of the senior DOJ attorneys here's wife was working with Christopher Steele on the anti-Trump dossier. They didn't disclose that it was paid for by Hillary Clinton and the Democrats' attorneys and through their law firms. They didn't give that information to the judge. And by the way, they're required to. Under the FISA court rules, they are supposed to give any information that would lead to any positive information about the person that they are seeking this warrant on. Since they are not being represented, they're supposed to provide that. So they should have noted there is that information that, hey, we are getting this from a partisan source. You should know this, Judge. That was excluded entirely. And yet who signs off on it? Jim Comey, Andrew McCabe, Rod Rosenstein, and they keep reaffirming it. They can never corroborate it. And ultimately, you have Jim Comey saying it was totally salacious and unverified.
3 times,
but
right?
But yet, it formed the essential basis of the initial and all 3 renewals of the FISAs against Carter Page, the Trump campaign associate.
Let's go up to our Washington office. Van, what's your reaction? What are you hearing?
Well, look, let's put together what you guys just talked about. What Director Comey should have told the president is we aren't using this information to investigate you, but guess what we are doing? We are using information from a source that we terminated for an egregious violation with information that we know to be false to investigate and spy on your team. He didn't tell the president that. And, Jay, one other thing that I will say, and I'm having conversations with some friends on this on the Hill, Republicans in the Senate who oppose this coming out and Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee who oppose this coming out should be ashamed of themselves today, whether you're Republican, Democrat, or Independent. This kind of stuff has to stop, and they have to be for pushing this information out into the public.
I want to see if my friends that are left of center, and I've got friends that are left of center, that are in favor of civil liberties, thinks this is okay. That they think this is okay. To get a FISA application and a FISA warrant ultimately 3 times based on an unverified document and not telling the court that it's based on an unverified document in the affidavits that you filed, FBI and Department of Justice, with the court. Do you think that's okay? I like to debate that. Tell me how that is possibly okay. Let's grab a call.
All right, a lot of people on hold for a while, so let's go ahead and take some of these. Let's go to Ann in Atlanta on line 3. You're on the air.
Hey, Ann.
Hi, Jay.
Hey.
Quick question,
Yep.
just as a layperson, not familiar with the law.
Yep.
What are the consequences? I mean, what could the charges be? Will anybody be charged in your guesses? And then finally, my question is this just going to be something that fizzles like everything else has fizzled?
I don't think this is not
legs?
no, this is not fizzling because they did not give accurate information to a court. There's a whole host of issues you could have with that. I mean, there's a whole host of legal issues you can have with not giving the full disclosure to the court that the information you're basing the FISA application warrant on, the affidavit you signed, are based on political opposition research from a paid person that you already said was unverified and salacious. I mean, Really? So no, I think this is not just fizzle. That's number one. Number two, I want to see the counter narrative because it'll be very interesting to see how they try to spin this. But I'd sure like to find out why these people thought this was okay to do this in the FBI and the Department of Justice. I'd like to know the answer to that question. Because if the answer to the question is, well, we thought there was something there, they're still called due process. And also not lying under oath to a federal judge, which when you sign an affidavit, you would be doing if you put a false statement in there. So none of these statements, should we play that statement, Will? Does that make sense in this context? Here's another statement from the hearing with James Comey.
So the context then was actually narrower, focused on what I just talked to him about. That it was very important because it was first true, and second, I was very, very much about being in kind of a J. Edgar Hoover type situation. I didn't want him thinking that I was briefing him on this to sort of hang it over him in some way. I was briefing him on it because we had been told by the media it was about to launch. We don't want to be keeping that from him. And if there was he needed to know this was being said. But I was very keen not to leave him with an impression that the Bureau was trying to do something to him. And so that's the context in which I said, sir, we're not personally investigating you.
So when did this conversation, I'm asking our team, when did this conversation, Will, when did the conversation, is this the going back to the January conversation with the president? They had just gotten the FISA warrants 3 months before. I mean, do you understand? Does everybody understand that? They had just gotten the FISA warrants 3 months before. So, I mean, it doesn't work both ways here. I mean, it just doesn't. I mean, he's telling the president one thing. What's he telling the federal court? You bring him back to testify to that. Probably should take his Fifth Amendment privilege.
I'm very worried, too, about the names. I mean, we know Dana Bente is still now within the Department of Justice. Rod Rosenstein's still there. Andrew McCabe just out. We knew what Sally Yates pulled. I mean, so what Jim Comey is still running his mouth as we speak, commenting on this. But there are still two of these people inside our government, and one is running the Russia probe. Running it. That is Rod Rosenstein. And
Special counsel reports to Rod.
He signed off that there was probable cause to continue this surveillance, which means...
When was the last time they got the warrant? Do we know that from this? Yeah, we don't. But we know it was after January, right? Because the renewals were every 90 days. So the first one was October of 2016, and it was renewed 2 additional times. They're renewed every 90 days. So we're into 2017, significantly. After James Comey spoke to the president about this dossier not being verifiable. And after Christopher Steele leaked it to the media. And then the FBI cuts off Christopher Steele, kind of, because they still are in communications. Let's grab another call if we can, Logan.
All right, yeah, let's definitely try. Let's go to Joseph in California on line 4.
Hi, Joseph. Go ahead.
Hey, Jay. My question is, since the warrant was got under false pretenses or unverified evidence, any of the evidence gathered underneath that, is that submissible in court?
So you're talking about the fruit of the poisonous tree. So that's a court precedent that if the method upon which you gathered the evidence was illegal, that the evidence cannot be then used in a proceeding. I think that's one issue that's significant here, but I'll tell you the other issue that's significant, and that is these FBI agents and James Comey and all these others that authorized this. I mean, James Comey yesterday, didn't he send out that don't be bullied thing? Don't be bullied. You went to the President of the United States saying this dossier is nothing while you were getting FISA applications and warrants based on it. And you're then telling the President of the United States this is nothing? Yeah, the fruit of the poisonous tree affects this entire process, in my view. All right, I'm trying to grab calls, but, well, we got a minute left, Logan. What do you want to do here?
Yeah, I think we need to just go into the break. If you're watching online, we continue the show during the breaks. We'll try to take some comments, too. I know we haven't gotten to a ton of those, but obviously we've been breaking a lot of news. We do have just one line open right now because it's been crazy. 1-800-684-3110 to have your voice heard. That's 1-800-684-3110. We'll try to take as many calls as we can.
We're probably going to stay after do a little bit more broadcasting,
Yeah, we'll possibly be staying longer, so if you want to make sure you get that, join us online.